Tell me what these three people have in common. A child who can't talk, a child who can't walk, and a woman who is trying to muster the strength to leave an abusive relationship. That is the three stories that we're going to share on this episode of What Chiropractic Doesn't Cure, Stories of Innate. You're going to be amazed at what they have in common and how chiropractic helped them all to thrive and live innately and heal. So let's jump right into What Chiropractic Doesn't Cure, Stories of Innate. With years of experience as a subluxation-based chiropractor in Canada for 16 years, Dr. Lise Cloutier migrated with her life and her family to Turks and Caicos to start a practice there, and it was because it was a life calling. So I'm excited today because she's full of passion, full of knowledge and wisdom when it comes to simply educating the public and chiropractors about chiropractic. So welcome.
Hi, Jenna. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and to share and to help chiropractors and lay people as well.
Yes, wonderful. So tell us a story. Who got better under chiropractic care and how did their body heal itself?
Oh, gosh, I have so many stories after 29 years in practice. And, everybody gets better. I've never seen anybody get worse under chiropractic care, but there is a few stories that come to mind. One is probably one of the most profound. I have three very profound ones, but I'll start with this one because I was really green. I was like literally maybe 18 to 24 months into practice. And of course, you're full of, oomph. You want to help everybody, but you're still a little bit like, insecure, like, oh, I've only been a chiropractor for this long. And there's so many things you haven't seen or haven't helped yet. And so the story goes like this. I had just started a gentleman under care. He was a custodian, so he cleaned schools. He was also from Belarus. So he was an immigrant to Canada. And so his English was really weak, not very good. And so, but 3-4 weeks into his care, he gets off the table one day and goes, "Do you think you could help my son?" And I'm like, "What's wrong with your son?" He goes, "He can't speak. He's 11 years old and he's never spoken a word in his life." And my first reaction was like, "Oh, I've never helped that," right? So I almost said, "Oh, I think that's out of my scope." And then I said, "Tell me a little bit more." And he goes, "We've taken him to all the best specialists in the world. Nobody can figure it out. Nobody's been able to help him." So I'm thinking, okay, they've gone to the ENT and to, all sorts of vocal specialists or throat specialists, whatnot, and nobody's been able to find what's going on. So my thought was like, bring him to me, right? So, because I'm thinking, okay, what if there's a subluxation affecting the communication between the brain and his vocal cords? And my first thought was birth trauma. So I said, bring him at your next visit. We're going to book him in at this time. And I said, bring your wife. Because my thought was I wanted to know about the history of her pregnancy. If there was physical trauma, mental, emotional, or chemical trauma through the pregnancy and then the delivery. And sure enough, as it turned out, in the labor and delivery process, he got stuck in the birth canal a little too long and his heart rate started going down. So of course the doctors, their panic, or their effort to save the child, they ended up using forceps to quickly get him out as quickly as possible. And so I thought for sure he's going to be subluxated in his upper cervical spine. And sure enough, I did my examination, my palpation, and he had upper cervical subluxation. And I told the parents, I said, "Listen, I'll be honest, I've never treated this before, so I'm not going to make any promises, but let's start adjusting him and see what happens." And I literally started this boy like 3 times a week, okay? Week 1, nothing. Week 2, nothing, no change. Week 3, week 4, week 5, week 6. And I had this moment, I think around week 6 or 5 or 6, and I said, "Gosh, are we going to get a miracle here or not? Like, what's going to happen?" And week 7, I walk into the room and the whole family's there that day and they're like chatting in their language, of which I don't understand Belarusian. And they had their 16-year-old daughter there who I'd only met once, but they brought her along because she was the only one who could speak fairly fluent English. And I said, "What's going on?" She goes, "We wanted to all come together to let you know that he started speaking." So it was like, like my heart sinks to my toes every time I share the story. Yeah, so you just, you never know. You just never know. And when you're a young doctor, it's so easy to say, oh, I've never helped that. I don't think I can help that. I feel like a lot of especially the younger chiropractors are just too young to refer back to their primary. And what's interesting is, listen, by the time people come to us, they've already exhausted all the allopathic model avenues. They've gone to their primary, they've gone to another primary, they've gone for a second, a third, a fourth opinion. They've tried everything in the allopathic model, and now they're coming to us because all that failed. By the time they pick up the phone to make an appointment with a holistic practitioner outside the allopathic realms, they're nervous. It took courage. They're desperate. They're looking for an alternative approach. So don't dismiss people who come to you, and don't refer them back to their primary. You don't know until you try. You really don't. The power of the wisdom, the innate of the intelligence of the body is remarkable. And I have several stories like that.
Yeah, that is so beautiful. I love also that you brought in the whole family, that you said, I want to talk to his mother as well. And that you said, going back to his earliest existence as he was developing and that moment of his birth. I have 4 children, and a friend texted me today asking about birth, and she's having her first baby. And it is such a crucial moment. And it's so how liberating and how beautiful for that mother to have that healing, that went back to the moment of that birth, to know that her son could have that life flow restored, that
Exactly.
it was possible, that he was, as a mom, just that feeling of like, is my baby okay? Whether they're 11 or 11 minutes old. That's beautiful. And
Yeah.
how powerful, what a sign of dysfunction healed from not talking to talking is a pretty clear change.
Exactly. It must have been like, to think as a parent, right? If there's something not normal with your newborn child, he's not developing on cue. As a mother, you're always going to be asking yourself for your entire life, what did I do wrong? Did I eat the wrong thing? Did I drink the wrong thing? Whatever. You're just going to always probably think you did something wrong or blame yourself. And then for them, that they'd gone to all these specialists and nobody could find the cause and nobody could help, until the dad came to me seeking chiropractic for his back pain. And we ended up helping his son who couldn't speak.
Yeah. So do you have another story that you want to share along with that today?
Yes. Gosh, I have two more.
Okay.
So the other one happened in Turks and Caicos. I think it was about 2015. This family brought their 12-year-old son to me, who had been in a wheelchair for 6 years, unable to walk. So his history was, when he was about 5, 6 years old, they found a tumor above his kidney. And so they did chemo and radiation. They zapped that tumor. And so his spine developed a scoliosis. This is the innate power of the body. His spine, to protect the nervous system that keeps us alive, that makes everything work, that promotes healing and adaptation, his spine curved away from where they were zapping him with chemo and radiation. And of course, the doctors did what they know best to help his situation. But as a result, he lost his ability to walk, right? Because it put so much stress on the nervous system. So now this poor child was in a wheelchair for 6 years. The parent brought him to me and they said, do you think you can help him walk? And again, it's like one of those, like, in the back of your mind, in that little voice, you're like, are you kidding me right now? You guys are asking for a very profound miracle. But being the optimistic, crazy person that I am, and fully, wholeheartedly believing that we were made perfect, that God gave us the brain and a spinal cord and a nervous system so that it can express the inborn wisdom for us to express health, healing, adaptation, and be the best version of what we can be, I started adjusting this boy. But what was interesting? His subluxation, again, I actually initially thought I need to focus like in the scoliosis, right? Where the spine curved. And all of a sudden I'm palpating his neck and he like winces and jumps. And like literally I saw a little tear come down his eye and I go, oh, that was painful, wasn't it? He goes, yes. I said, do you get headaches? He goes, every day, ma'am, every day. And again, so I started focusing more on the upper cervical. And within 3.5 weeks, this child, again, they brought him in and they said, we need to show you what's going on. And they said, Jovan, get up. and this kid got up out of his wheelchair and started walking.
Wow.
So, and we recorded that. I posted it on Facebook. I was only on Facebook back then. And it literally, like, for back then, it went pretty viral, got circulated, and a lot of colleagues and reached out and said, wow, that's profound. So,
Yeah. Well, especially when you knew like there was that trauma. There was that trauma in
yeah,
his nervous
yeah,
system that needed to be addressed, that it was,
yeah. And that's a good example of chemical interference with the nervous system, right? The chemo and the radiation, right? Which was needed to shrink the tumor, but it was because it was so close to the spine, it impacted the alignment of the spine, and the spine literally was trying to move away to protect the nervous system from, that dose of chemo and radiation that he had to undergo. So it was pretty profound. Yeah.
yeah. And I think that these stories are also important because sometimes we think that we just kind of get stuck in this rut of, I guess my life is like this, whether it's migraines or low back pain or something where we're like, it's a minor discomfort. And so I think sometimes God does give us these stories of like highlighting just how powerful his innate intelligence is that he installed
Mm-hmm.
into our
Mm-hmm.
cells to say
Mm-hmm.
like, well, if we can do this, if the spine, if the body is this smart to do this, what could it do with other things, even, cold and congestion and things where we're like, oh, we have
Exactly.
to take something, we have to do something. And it's like, well, have you tried resting? Have you tried some water? Have you tried, some very simple, basic things to just support your body? But these stories are great. They highlight that
Yeah.
intelligence.
And those are profound stories. And then I have another story if we have time.
Yes.
And this is not as profound, but it's just to give you a different perspective, especially if we have young doctors watching. So this was a woman who came to me also in Turks and Caicos, and she didn't have major symptomatology. And I think she kind of fell into my practice energetically without really like initially realizing what she was there for. And this will happen. Like if you're really connected and on purpose and on fire and in tune, you're going to attract people like magnetically, right? They're going to come into your office and you're going to say, oh, you start doing your history. Okay. So, we're so used to people coming in with symptoms. And all of a sudden, like you'll have a patient, I don't really have symptoms. Now I know to say, great, you're my favorite kind of patient because you don't need to have aches and pains and be expressing all these symptoms to be under chiropractic care, right? We help maintain the integrity of your spine and nervous system, kind of like we keep the plaque off the nervous system, kind of like keeping the plaque off your teeth, right? An ounce of prevention's worth a pound of cure. But anyways, coming back to this lady, her story was that in the end, she really came to me to garner strength, right? To reconnect mind, body, soul, and spirit because she was in a horrible, horrible relationship. She was in an abusive relationship, and she was trying to kind of become whole again so she would garner the strength to leave and protect herself and her young, I think she had like a 5, 6 year old daughter. So I'm adjusting her and I'm just keeping it cool, and I'm adjusting her and supporting her. And then one day she came in, she goes, you may not see me next week, but don't worry about me, right? Because she was planning, she was getting the strength to leave the relationship, and she was going to be leaving the island, and she knew she had to kind of do it strategically and to kind of get away from him because he was a very controlling, narcissistic individual. So sure enough, all of a sudden, like she disappeared, and I knew that she had garnered enough strength, to do what she had to do to protect herself and her daughter. And
Yes.
that was really the reason she came to me in the end. And I thought that was so cool.
Yes, that mind body soul connection is so dismissed in the modern world, I think. And so often I think about the day that I get adjusted is, and I tell people it's the only day that I'm zen. It's the only day that I'm calm. It's the only day
Mm-hmm.
that I'm not hyper. I get back in my vehicle and I sit down and just even that little pause of being like, oh,
I feel the same way.
I'm whole, I'm well. And sometimes,
It
sometimes,
calms. It
yes,
calms
and
us.
sometimes the stress of life comes back in, and 24 hours later, I'm like, man, I feel like I should go back. Like, I don't feel like I'm holding this adjustment this time. But that is so powerful to be reconnected with who you truly are and who you need in your life.
Yeah, sometimes I'll get adjusted 2 or 3 times in a week if I'm having a really stressful week. And I just feel it's like it gives me a moment to like reconnect to myself. It gives me a moment to like breathe, step back, assess the situation so I can make a better decision. Like, especially I've got a big decision to make. And I'm sometimes, you're just stressed and you don't know which way to go and you're not thinking straight. It just helps me like rein back, pull in, reconnect to myself and go, okay, this is the right choice. This is what I need to do. This is the way I should go, this way.
Yes. Now, I have a question because in sharing chiropractic stories, you have done that in multiple parts of the world now, from Canada all the way to Turks and Caicos. So tell us, do you find that you have had to find new ways of educating, or do you educate in similar ways wherever you are?
Um, Pretty much similar ways. I would say I feel like my best tip on educating people, find out what they do, what their occupation is, and use analogies that they can relate to, because then it makes sense to them. You got to keep it really simple. I remember like my first report of findings when I first graduated in Canada. Oh, your right scapula is elevated, and then your left iliac crest is lower. And I just saw this, my new patient, her eyes just glazed over. And I realized, I lost her. And then I came home and it's like, I've got to get out of that medical terminology and our fancy words that we learned in school, because to our patient, it's Chinese. They don't know what that means. You have to really keep it really simple. And my favorite analogy I've been using a lot in the last year is like, listen, the brain is like your computer, right? It becomes your spinal cord. Your spinal cord is like your internet cable. So imagine if you have a misaligned vertebrae here and a misaligned vertebrae here and a subluxation here and one there. Now you're going from 5G to 4G to 3G to 2G. How's your body going to work? Is that going to be good for your health or bad for your health long term? And people, when you're talking internet connectivity, they get it like that. They get
Yes.
it.
Yes. I love that. I tell people a lot of times that I don't work with chiropractors. I do it so that I can reach the mom that's hiding in her closet on Instagram, who was up all night with her baby,
Yeah.
And so thinking like when I'm writing for a doctor to say, not how would this doctor say it necessarily, but that mom who's scrolling and eating her fair trade chocolate and she's just hiding in the closet. It's almost time to go pick up the big kids, but she's so tired and she's on Instagram. What does she need to see? What would in her amygdala hijack? What
Yeah.
would tell her, like, this will help you survive and even thrive? What struggles is her family going through?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
love that too, because it is whatever a person's occupation is, that is where they spend their time, what they spend their days doing and thinking about. That is going to help them to see the relevancy, the primacy of that information instead of just scrolling right past it. Like, I don't have the time to remember what my scapula is.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. When we're thinking of our social media marketing, we really have to think of simplicity, short, concise message, and really like putting ourselves, like you said, I'm that stressed out mom. I've got a colicky baby. I haven't slept all night, and I've got two others in school, and I don't know what I'm going to make for dinner. And I forgot to pick up the dry cleaning, and the dog needs a walk. And I'm like frazzled. I'm stressed out of my mind. And my husband's going to come home and I'm just going to throw the kids at him and scream at him because I'm just at my wit's end. Right. So it's creating those little videos kind of like that.
Yeah.
And they're going to go, oh my gosh, that's me. And now
Mhm.
they're saying that chiropractic can help me get my sanity back. I need to go to the chiropractor, right?
Yes.
You've got to make it relatable to the situations that people are in or to the diagnosis they've been in. Do you have a child with attention deficit, hyperactive, not learning at school, not hitting their milestones growth wise? Okay, you're talking to me. That's my child. You're ticking all the boxes, right? So that's how we
Yes.
have to make our marketing very simple. And then when you connect to people on their level, they're going to say, this chiropractor is the answer. right?
Yes, and like you said this whole time, that they've looked for answers in other places. I love chiropractic patients who frequently they have done a lot of research and they have looked into a lot of things. And they're like, I just feel like there's something missing. There's a missing piece of the puzzle. And so to say the missing piece of the puzzle is probably your nervous system, that, that outside in can get you, somewhere. But until we've solved it, inside out, that can be the missing part of the puzzle. You can take dog walks and gratitude practices and still be anxious until that nervous system piece has been addressed.
Exactly, right? How do we heal? Above, down, inside out. The nervous system is at the core always, right?
Yes.
I always tell my patients our nervous system has three jobs. It makes everything work to keep us alive. Number two, it's our master healing system of the body. Number three, it's your system of adaptation. I tell my patients, you filter life through your nervous system 24/7, right? The change in the weather. Because I'll have patients, in Turks, they go, I only get this when I'm exposed to air conditioning, right? That's a change in climate that their nervous system can no longer adapt to. I'm like, it's not the AC, it's just that you cannot adapt to that change when it gets too cold because somebody's blasting the AC in a restaurant or a store or whatnot, right? So I say less, mean more, right? And keep it simple. Keep it simple. Get away from the medical terminology. We're chiropractors. We're not midi-practors.
I love that. Perfect. Well, as we wrap this up, what is the best way for people to connect with you? Where do you love to share chiropractic?
Most of my stuff is shared on Caicos Chiropractic for my practice. And then I've also recently started Dr. Lise Mind Body Beautiful. So Caicos Chiropractic is probably the best way to reach me. It's easy to remember.
Yeah, I will put those links in the show notes because I know that it's just really inspiring to see other chiropractors who are showing up and telling these stories and communicating simply. It's really refreshing and helpful for all of us. So thank you for sharing these stories and thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me, Jenna. It's been a pleasure.